unlike most of the current Hollywood writers, I would say that George Martin is genuinely a good writer. And he decides to support his fellow writers in the strike. Now, I would point out that if the fellow writers in the strike were even at half the level that Martin is, there wouldn't be a need for a strike because like the Hollywood producers would actually pay them more. ChatGPT wouldn't be able to replace them because ChatGPT is incapable at this point of writing something as complex and as good as Game of Thrones. But that's the issue, right? Like the current writers are completely talentless. And that's why studios aren't paying them. They're easily replaced. And this is why ChatGPT is better than them. But you have R.R. Martin coming in and getting roasted, saying that the writer's strike is won. No one wanted this. No writer with an ounce of sense anyway, but the producers and the studios and the networks and the streamers gave us no choice. I would say the writers gave the studios no choice. I mean, if you're striking and on your sign that you're using to try to gather sympathy for the world, you're incapable of writing something that sparks the emotion of the people reading it, you don't deserve a job as a writer. Like, I'm sorry, and we made a video where we got ChatGPT to actually write a couple of signs for the protests. Immensely better, right? So if you can't write better than ChatGPT, you don't belong in Hollywood. I'm not saying you shouldn't be a writer. I'm saying you don't belong in Hollywood. Like, Hollywood should be reserved for writers of George's caliber. But people are roasting Judge. They're roasting Judge because they're saying you've been on a writer strike for over a decade. Dude, you're richer than some of the studios. What are you talking about? He's talking about treating all writers fairly in an industry making record profits. Well, that's the problem. They're not making record profits. I mean, most of the Marvel movies that bomb is because of the writing. Like, notice how it's not... I mean, recently it has been due to the special effects as well. But most of these movies, you know, like, they have nice action shots. Some of them had good special effects. Like, everything was working for them. The acting, like, no one is complaining about the acting. It's the writing. Like, the writing is abysmal in most of these new movies that are coming out. Notice how they're incapable of making original things. It's like sequels, prequels, spin-offs. It's almost like the producers are aware that the writers are so shit so that they have to help them. Like, why would you make a sequel or a spin-off or a prequel? It's because you already have the universe established, so the writer has less to work with. Because, like, if you know your writer is bad, you're like, well, look, I'm going to help you up a little. You know, like, you already have the universe created, just like, try to make something out of it. Now that you have time, maybe you can work on that book series you used to write, because I think, yeah, like, Martin is actually involved in some projects as well, so like he's also striking. You remember A Song of Ice and Fire, right? I only ask because I know babies that have already grown into teenagers who were born when the last book series was published. He's not a jukebox. Okay. But there's other people, like I seen someone say, George, kindly and respectfully, you've been on a personal strike for a decade. Your beloved fans are still waiting. Like, this is a very polite message, right? Right, chat? I mean, is this not a polite way of addressing? It's like, look, man, come on. I actually hope that he doesn't finish. Just to spite the entitled fans like you. Who do you think you are? Let me put it this way. Alright, like, the reason this man is famous, the reason this man is rich, is because of people like me. I put food on his table. Like, this is the relationship between him and I. I have put food on this man's table by purchasing his book, right? We live in the age of conscientious consumerism. Like, if you play Hogwarts, according to the intellectual minds on Twitter, you are committing transgenocide because you're feeding into that evil J.K. Rowling with your royalties, right? Like, that's what people on Twitter are telling me, right? I do not make the rules, I just play the meta. So they're telling me that we live in the age of conscientious consumerism, right? Well, if that's the case, then me purchasing Song of Ice and Fire have put food on George R.R. Martin's table. He may have starved if it wasn't for people like us. Okay, so we have nourished, but there was like a unwritten contract, okay, like a verbal arrangement that the author gets to finish his series, and in exchange we give him cash. All right, like I work hard for my money. I sweat over a hot computer every day to make it's blood and sweat, right? So like if you want my money, I will give it to you, but give me entertainment in exchange, right? Because my money has value. Now, the idea is that he needs to finish the book. That's the unwritten thing. If you were to go back in time right now and to tell people that are wanting to purchase Song of Ice and Fire, and you tell them, you know what? If you buy this book, you will never finish. You will never know the story. You'll never know the story how it ends. You are going to buy something and you're going to be very disappointed. If I had the time machine and I would do that, I am willing to bet that George Martin would sue me for not doing it. Like, do not warn these people. Right? Like, honestly, like, think about this scenario, right? Like, you have a time machine. You can go back in time like the Terminator. And you can warn people, like everyone that wants to buy A Song of Ice and Fire, and you tell them, look, you're buying it, but you're never going to get to see how it finishes. It's a really good book, but it's going to be stuck on a cliffhanger. And then George R. R. Martin would become destitute and poor, because like very few people would buy his book. Do you not think he would sue you to prevent you from using the time machine? Unironically, do you not think that would be a controversy? Interesting. But like, I'm really curious what George R. R. Martin would do, because on one hand, right, he would be rich and wealthy, and people criticize him and roast him and ask him, it's like, hey, old man, are you going to finish, or are you going to... The clock is ticking, tick-tock, you know, the years are going by, like, what's going to happen? So, like, on one hand, he is rich, but he is getting all these people on Twitter that are nagging him about it. On the other hand, he's poor, but he doesn't get anyone complaining about him. Which one do you think he will like, huh? I mean, I can only... speculate, obviously. I'm not that arbiter. I do not know what he would like. But I genuinely think that he prefers being rich. So, cut me the crap with like, oh my god, you know, like all these evil fans that paid him money, that bought his products, that purchased the merch, that watched the TV show. All these evil fans, they are so entitled and they want the book to be... Oh, shut the fuck up. Yeah, so regarding the writing strike, you know, George Martin, if other writers would up their game and they would actually make things that are profitable, maybe there wouldn't be a strike. And if there was a strike, then maybe people would support them more. Because right now, from what I'm seeing on the internet, very few people give a crap about these writers. And a lot of people are thankful for the strike, and we wish that it would actually continue for far longer than necessary, because all of the Saturday Night Live comedians, they had to cancel their shows. I mean, these are supposed to be some of the best comedians in America, right? Like some of the funniest, well-informed comedians. And what ends up happening is that there are all empty suits. Like they're just reading a script from what other people wrote them. People that we do not get to see in front of the camera. They are incapable of making their own jokes. They cannot do something funny. You would think that after years and years and years of just reading other people's scripts, they would know how to make their own jokes, especially in the age of ChatGPT. They are incapable of making funny stuff. It's just mind-boggling. All of the comedians, not a single one, is able to keep on doing it. Let me know what you guys think, though, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.